Quinshon Judkins is in the transfer portal. It came out this morning, and then there were even some national people who normally break transfer portal news were like, Quinshon Judkins is not officially in the transfer portal. And then there was a graphic from Quinshon Judkins announcing that he was in the transfer portal. So that is big news. He has obviously been prolific on the field for 2 seasons at Ole Miss. We talked going into the bowl game about the rare air that he was in terms of being one of 2 SEC running backs in history to go for over 1,000 yards and 15 or more touchdowns as a freshman and as a sophomore. The other one is Herschel Walker. And there are 9 players in the history of college football that have done that. So Ole Miss is losing a prodigious talent. By the way, I went back and watched the Peach Bowl last night. I did not think Mark Jones and Louis Riddick were bad. I thought they were a little silly. The poetry thing was dumb. They did not exclusively call Ole Miss Mississippi. They alternated back and forth between it. I don't like Mark Jones. As a general rule, I don't think he's great at his job. But I thought they were fine on the broadcast. Yeah. Complete aside, has nothing to do with what we're talking about today. Just
the broadcast, they were fine. The broadcast, I thought, stunk. The interrupting plays or whatever. But anyway.
Hey, the reason I said that, my train of thought got me there because when I said prodigious, that sounded like a word that Mark Jones would use.
Yeah. He used it to describe Saquon Barkley's thighs.
Yeah, he's got a whole thesaurus just ready to go. But, yeah, there's a lot of angles, and it's impossible to pick where to start. But I'm glad you started it the way you did, because we'll talk about, how they replace his production, what Ulysses Bentley becomes to this team, and how good he was this year, all that stuff. But I've seen too much of he's not that good. And, guys, I'm sorry. He is an elite-level back. Just because Lane Kiffin's offenses in the past have had really good running games, and they will in the future, does not mean Quinshon Judkins is not but an elite-level football player. That is objectively true. And if you don't believe me, go back and watch the Egg Bowl. I mean, how quickly some people forget how special he was against the in-state rival. So I'm glad you laid it out that way. Kiffin's offenses are always going to have good running backs because they run the ball really, really well. But I don't like the, he's not that good stuff. Guys, let's be rational about this conversation. The dude's an elite-level football player.
And I do think it would be worth looking at his stats one more time. You want to go to his freshman year, 2022. Now I'm the one having problems with the computer. I was trying to refresh that, and good grief. Sorry. I'm just going to go a different route to get to that in a second.
His freshman year, 274 carries, 1,567 yards, and 16 rushing touchdowns. This past year, 271 carries, 1,158 yards, 15 rushing touchdowns. So 31 rushing touchdowns to go with 3 receiving touchdowns over the last 2 years, and 2,700-plus yards rushing.
And, I mean, it's really good, right? I mean, it's 34 total touchdowns.
It's better than anybody else in the SEC over the last 2 years.
It's just really, really good. So, from that standpoint, it's a loss. It is a big loss. In a pure production on the field, any way you slice it, that is a significant loss for Ole Miss. There is more to this. Like Borky said a second ago, there are a lot of angles. There are a lot of different directions you can go. Where is Quinshon Judkins going to land? That's one of the questions. Who is Ole Miss going to get to replace Quinshon Judkins?
Part of that production's already on the team, you think. Maybe he goes to the NFL, but Bentley, you would think, would have an increased role. He's kind of earned that. I mean, when he gets his touches, he's quite good.
Yeah, the issue with Ulysses Bentley staying healthy.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's just the issue. He got hurt again in the Peach Bowl and wasn't able to go the distance in that ball game. They're going to get a deal done with Ulysses Bentley. That is in the works. If it's not completely done, I think you should expect to see an announcement in the next day or two that he will be coming back. I feel like there's so many questions, and again, I don't know exactly how to do this. Here's let me tell you what I know and what I believe. Quinshon Judkins and his people had agreed in principle prior to the Peach Bowl with Ole Miss on a new deal. Both sides had agreed. There had been some back and forth. There had been some negotiating. And when I say negotiate, I'm not even talking about money. I'm talking about language in the contract and the way it was written and some things that were in there that had been a little bit of a holdup. But they had reached an agreement in principle prior to the bowl game. Quinshon Judkins choosing to enter the transfer portal. And I know somebody hearing this is going to give me a side eye. That's fine. It was not about money. My guess is Quinshon Judkins is going to end up getting less money wherever he ends up than he was going to get at Ole Miss. And if for no other reason, it's because his biggest piece of leverage is now gone. Ole Miss was paying Quinshon Judkins a lot of money. They paid him a lot of money this past year. They were going to pay him a lot of money this next year. And so without that being there as an option anymore, whoever it is that enters the Quinshon Judkins sweepstakes for his services for next season, they're not having to bid against Ole Miss. They're not having to beat what he was making at Ole Miss. They've only got to beat what somebody else is willing to pay. And so, and again, we don't know the numbers, right, that other places are operating with. And so, but that's kind of an educated guess that he's going to end up making less money. So this was not about, it wasn't just about money, but there were some philosophical differences that were there. There was frustration on both sides that existed. You have read things today probably on message boards and Twitter and other places about frustration that existed with some of his teammates, and some of that being evident from the Peach Bowl. And you know what? When it's all said and done, if you're disappointed with Quinshon Judkins leaving, welcome to portal life. Because you can't be super duper excited about going and getting people from other places like Walter Nolan or any of the other guys that Ole Miss has gotten in the portal over the last few years, and then be like, I can't believe he's leaving and going somewhere else. It's the world that we're in. That's a starting point for the conversation. Thoughts? I know we're up against a break, but maybe let's do that when we come back. Let's just kind of make this an open forum. We will loop in your text messages as well on the C Spire text line, 601-879-4. Somebody said, everything I can find says the transfer portal closed on 1/2/24. Is there a special rule, or is what I see wrong? And they actually linked the eligibility documents from the NCAA. I don't know this for a fact. I have read this today. I've tried to verify it, but haven't gotten a final answer. Teams that played in a New Year's Six game or a semifinal game, there is a small window, 5 days, correct. 6 days.
Because Alabama players have through the weekend, yes.
Yeah, after that game, that allows them to still be eligible to enter the portal.
Yep.
So I think that's the answer to that. So let's talk. Hey, Dad, as I was talking a second ago, the beauty of this video stream we have, I saw a couple of eye rolls and a chuckle and a turn your head sideways a time or two. And what's on your mind, buddy?
I mean, I can't help but get over the idea of there were all these attitude issues with Judkins in the Peach Bowl, and Kiffin's thought process wasn't to bench him, it was to give him 34 carries. I mean, he had all these.
Got hurt,
nobody liked him. Well, I don't care. I mean, if he's such a cancer and such a problem, put him on the bench and just
you don't have anybody else to run.
I'm just saying. He's nobody likes him. Nobody wants him on the team, but we're going to give him the ball 34 times. I'm not going to buy into this. I'm not going to buy into this idea that once again Ole Miss. Oh, we wanted him to go. We wanted him to go. He had to go.
I think you're making that part of. I don't think anybody's saying they wanted him to go.
Oh, I can find you some people saying.
Well, I'm sure some people are. But I meant you reacting to what I was saying a second ago as we were talking about that.
I just if he was such a problem, why is he on the field? Surely somebody could run the football.
Because
they figure something out.
That's the interesting point about this, and it's a balancing act that you have. Because I mean, let's pretend all of that is true, right? Because I've seen people reference the Tulane game. Well, that was a long time ago, and he played a lot. And played well. Again, watch the Egg Bowl. So he's not the first. If all of that is true, he's not the first diva to ever be in a locker room. So what was it? If it wasn't money, then what was the tipping point? Because you had, at the end of last season, multiple agreements, as I understand it. Richard, you can correct me if I'm wrong. But made an agreement, actually need more money. Okay, here's more money. Actually need more money. That happened after last season too, and it was happening again this year. But all that existed during the season, and you balance that. As a coach, you if you have a locker room issue, then you deal with the locker room issue and you figure it out, and they did that, and they won 11 games with him as their primary ball carrier. So what was it that finally, what was it, money? If it wasn't money, then what was the final not giving him what he's asking for anymore, explore your options elsewhere? Because as of last week, they had a new agreement. Like, they were expecting him to return and were going to pay him a substantial amount of money 1 week ago.
This is what happened last year with State with Ra Thomas. Was they had a deal in place. They felt like, okay, we're good to go. And then he just kept coming back to the table saying, no, I want more. No, I want more. So I don't know if that's the case here or not with Judkins, but my guess is that at some point he was like, nah, I want more. I mean, we've talked so many times about why they don't make NIL deals public, because it will breed competition in the locker room. Well, if he's getting this one. But that is just because we don't know doesn't mean the players don't know. Judkins has to know what guys are getting.
They know.
Yeah, he knows what Walter Nolan got. He knows what Juice Wells got. So he wants, his what he perceives to be his fair share of the money.
But he was getting his.
Well, he was getting what we would say is his fair share. But he's not getting what he would say is his fair share. Whether it's fair or not is his perception. I might say, well, he's making $600,000 a year. That's great money for a running back. Running backs are usually pretty replaceable. It's not like he's a quarterback or a high-end defensive end or something like that. But he might look at it as though I'm the best player on this team, and I should be paid as such.
And that SEC Mike guy who said that Judkins is more valuable to Ole Miss than Dart that's just absurd. That's ridiculous. So if it did, and Richard, you said it wasn't just about money, but let's just pretend for a second that he was asking for more than Dart. Sorry. Jackson Dart's more valuable to Ole Miss football than you.
Dart is more valuable, but Judkins is a better football player, if that makes sense.
Better at running back than Dart is.
Judkins is the best player on the team.
Mm-hmm.
Judkins is the best player on the team.
Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Was.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Was.
You didn't believe it was true at first, hey Dad.
I'm still not sold. You people. You're deceitful.
Let's have one more bet. Let's just add another bet to the
we're good. We're good.
If you're not sold,
we're good.
You tell me what the stakes are. I'm in.
You see there's stuff that's come out after I tweet it that makes it look like, this is a real thing. But at the same time, when it first came out, my first thought was this time next week, Here's the video. I could never leave. My heart was, I could just see it. I could have written the script for it. So, but apparently, no, I'm wrong on that one.
Something that I've thought about since this happened is one like you, Richard. I mean, the portal giveth, the portal taketh away. This is college football today. It happens. I mean, you took Texas A&M's best player, and somebody is going to take your star running back. I mean, that's just life in the portal age. The next thing I thought of is how much of a loss is it? Because losing Quinshon Judkins, I'm just not going to entertain it's not on the field, on the football field, production on the field, ability as a player, you're not going to get Quinshon Judkins' ability from anyone else. I don't think you will. So how much of a loss is it compared to what you're going to replace him with? How much does it change the way you think about this coming season and the amount of wins the team is going to have? Does it change their ceiling at all? So if you look at Judkins on his own in isolation, it's a massive loss, right? Elite player, great running back. But what's his wins above replacement? Like, how much better is he than...
It's almost like you listened to me and Robbie recording tomorrow's podcast. I had this exact discussion about war.
How much better is he than Ulysses Bentley? If he is RB1 next year, what's the difference between those two guys? So too many people are reacting to the loss of Judkins and not also bringing into the conversation what Bentley is, or if they add out of the portal, whether it be a guy that's already in the portal or a guy that they are trying to convince to get in the portal, because that's how it works now.
If Judkins is a one WAR, if he is one win above replacement in football, I mean, baseball, one WAR is nothing. Right. But in football, where you only play 12 games, that is the difference between making the playoff and not making it.
What if you replace his one WAR with a .8 WAR?
See, that's my question.
You covered it.
Yeah.
But is there if Judkins is only a 1, who is a .8? Who's the second best running back in college football?
Well, I mean, that's an arbitrary value. I mean, I get that you're kind of using a hypothetical WAR number, but
yeah,
it's an arbitrary assignment because none of us are smart enough. Well, I'm not smart enough to do an algorithm to figure out what that means or what that actually looks like. But every offense that Lane Kiffin has had a productive running back or multiple productive running backs. And what do you need to replace? Is it the actual production, like yard for yard, touchdown for touchdown? Is it the threat of the run? Is it by committee? Do you have to do it with one guy? Can it be multiple guys? I think there are a lot of things when you talk about, okay, what does Ole Miss do going forward to fill the hole that is left by Judkins? Because maybe you don't have a one-for-one replacement to him. I'm led to believe that Ole Miss has a plan in place for this. That this is not something that just happened last night, this morning, and all of a sudden, oh my gosh, what do we do now? It's not a you're just caught with your pants down thing. I think there's a chance that you see a high-level running back or two enter the portal in the next couple of days. And then, I mean, when Ole Miss got Ulysses Bentley, they got him in the spring portal 2 years ago. So there's a lot there. There's a lot there. And I think we can continue this conversation on the other side of this Thursday. C Spire text line, 601-879-4395. Let's start with Shaq Bully in Biloxi. Hey, Rich, how do you like the transfer portal now? I like it just fine, Shaq Bully. I don't have an issue with the way that it operates. Does it stink that Ole Miss just lost the best running back in the SEC and arguably the best running back in the country going into next season? Yeah, it does. Like, it does. Take whatever else you have read today about relationships and teammates and locker room, but take all that stuff, just strip it all away. And focus on the fact that if all of that was going on, And he still did what he did on the field over the last 2 years? Wow. So, does losing that stink for Ole Miss? Yeah, bad. But have you seen what else has happened in the transfer portal? They've added some pretty good pieces. They still got a quarterback coming back, and they've got the majority of their production on the offensive side of the ball coming back. And I think they're going to get something done with Bentley, and he's going to come back. And I think they're going to add 1 or 2 more running backs, some that may be in the portal, some that may not be in the portal yet. And, hey, Dad, we've had this conversation this year. I don't remember when we did it. October. Because I think it was in a conversation about Quinshon Judkins where I was like, guys, what do you do if you're Ole Miss? Because you know he's being paid a ton. You know he's going to command at least that much again next year to keep him on your roster. You look at the makeup of your roster and you have to decide, okay, is it worth that for the running back position, or are we better off going and using that money to fill in with blank? And hey, Dad, if I remember correctly, you were of the opinion, whatever it takes, you got to keep Judkins.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is my opinion. I think it's about perception more than anything else. I think it's about, that's your best player, and you've brought all these other guys in, but now your best player is hitting the road. Ole Miss has just had such a string of positive things. This is the first bad thing that's happened to Ole Miss since when? Since they lost to Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
And that was 2 months ago. Yeah. I mean, they haven't lost a men's basketball game. The women's basketball team is fine. They've been nailing all these transfers. Everything is going has been going. Ole Miss is. I'm just trying to, Coach. Yeah, you should love Coach Yo. She got you your only wins against me last year. And so it's just been this
jerseys, man. In case you forgot,
it's true. It's just been a positive like avalanche for Ole Miss. This is the first bad thing that's happened to the Rebels in quite some time.
Yeah.
So, and it's a bad thing. No matter how you try to spin it, this is any team in the country losing its best football player is a problem. Any team would struggle to Georgia. I don't know who Georgia's best football players off the top of their head. I guess maybe you say it's Carson Beck.
No, it's Brock
Bowers, right? Well, he's
going to the draft.
Well, that's fine, but he's going to the draft. So they will struggle next year, as talented as they are. Whoever they replace him with, whoever their starting tight end, is not going to be as good as Brock Bowers. Simple as that.
Yeah. But does that mean that Georgia takes a step back as a team?
No, because they have the depth and the talent everywhere else to make up for it. Does Ole Miss have that?
We'll find out. I mean, I think with what they've put together, they do. I
because
think.
what was more, and I know it's not an either-or thing, but what was more important to Ole Miss's success in 2024? Getting much better on the defensive and offensive lines, or keeping Judkins around? It's the first
line
one.
Of scrimmage, without question.
But and again, it's not an either-or thing, but the point is they've gotten one of those. They've checked one of those boxes. They have gotten significantly better on the defensive line. They're working on it, of course, but at least if you're looking for a spin zone, if you're an Ole Miss fan looking for spin zone, positive spin, you are now budgeted many hundreds of thousands of dollars for the 2024 season to help you with maybe another running back, maybe a couple more offensive linemen. Heck, what you were paying Judkins, you could get 2 offensive linemen and a running back.
They were going to do that anyway.
They were, but now you've got more.
So now you have freed up cash flow.
Yes.
And you were going to go after 2 or 3 offensive linemen, even with Judkins coming back. And you do have to go. You got to go get a running back now. Might have to go get 2 running backs.
Mm-hmm. But my point was,
you
have more
right
for that.
So whether that means higher caliber or it gives you the flexibility to maybe get a player that you weren't even expecting to be in the portal if somebody pops in, down the line. Here's my question. Just for now. until my next question pops up. Is there a scenario where, regardless of who the running back is for Ole Miss next year, it's going to be easier to gain yards on the ground in this offense next season than it was this year? And the basis for that question is, if Ole Miss gets better on the offensive line through the portal and guys coming back and whatever, and defenses have to scheme a little bit differently because of the weapons they have in the passing game, does that make it a little easier to run the ball?
I mean, you say a little easier to run the ball. Ole Miss has led the SEC in rushing. How many years of Kiffin being there? How much easier can it be? I mean, the tacklers still have to be out there, right? I mean,
okay. All right. So
they're going to be fine running the ball.
I'm going to use your answer to turn around what you've been saying. It's like you can't replace Quinshon Judkins. Ole Miss led the SEC in rushing before Quinshon Judkins. They led the SEC in rushing with Quinshon Judkins. What's to say they don't lead the SEC in rushing after Quinshon Judkins?
They might very well lead the SEC in rushing, but there's still no denying that was their best running back, and they're probably the best overall player on the team.
Yeah, and I'm not disagreeing with you in the least about that.
So
best player, not most important player, but best player.
Yeah. So I mean, he rushed for 1,500 yards a season ago. This year, with Dart being better, he rushed for fewer yards. I said, with Ole Miss, I'm not worried about offense. And defensively, they're getting a lot better. And at worst, this probably only hurts Ole Miss for a win, but it's the margin of error for Ole Miss in a win is the difference between the college football playoff and not being in the college football playoff. All right, this isn't a team that was going to go 12-0, and now they might go 11-1. They're a team that's probably, if you made me sit down with a pencil and paper and say, do their schedule, I'd probably say 10-2. But 9-3 is iffy for the playoff. And if I say 9-3, then 8-4 is not in the playoff.
I don't think 9-3 gets in the playoff.
Probably doesn't, but I mean, you'd be close. There's going to be a 9-3 team in. It could be Ole Miss.
There are years when 9-3 would have had you in the top 12, and there are years like this year where 10-2 barely has you in the top 10.
But therein lies the question that cannot be answered, and we'll see what they do in the portal, and that'll change the answer. But is he worth a full win? Does losing Judkins change the team by a full win or not?
Does Ole Miss beat Texas A&M in 2022 without Quinshon Judkins?
In 2022, no.
Did they beat Mississippi State last year, this past season? I think they probably still do, but Judkins took control of that game in the second half.
He played like a man possessed.
That's got Ole Miss going. Yeah, that's what got Ole Miss going in that game. Yeah, I think Quinshon Judkins is worth a win. I think his win above replacement is at minimum 1.
So whatever you were going to pick Ole Miss's record to be next year, you're now subtracting a game from that based on this?
Because I got to see who else they bring in the portal now.
Yeah,
we're a long way from doing that.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just
trying to paint you into a quarter on January 4th.
That's
September.
Not happening. I'll get new information between now and then. I promise you that.
It may not take that long, but before you see what they add. But
but whoever they add, he's not as good as Quinshon Judkins. I think Quinshon Judkins is the best running back in college football. So whoever you get, even if you get the number 2 guy, he's not.
Dwayne and Brandon says, is there nothing Ole Miss could have done to keep Quinshon? I said this earlier. I'll say it again. And you can just re-rack your text messages that you sent earlier when you said, Richard, you're an idiot if you think this didn't have anything to do with money. Financially, Ole Miss was where they needed to be. They were. The numbers that you read about publicly for NIL almost exclusively are inflated. Not all of them. There are some unique circumstances. But more times than not, when you read about a player getting $1 million, just go ahead and subtract 30 or 40% from that, maybe 50%. This was not a financial issue for Ole Miss. There were some other things that they were negotiating and working through, and some other issues that they were trying to work through, and it got to the point where it became better for everybody to move on. I don't know what that's going to mean financially for Quinshon Judkins. He's going to be paid handsomely to play football somewhere next year. Will he get as much as he was going to get at Ole Miss? I would guess no. Maybe I'm wrong on that. You may disagree with that, but I don't think he'll end up being paid liquid cash as much wherever he ends up as he would have been paid at Ole Miss. You got a lot of people telling us about Jackson Dart's Instagram. It's something. He put a Tom Brady sit down interview answer.
Yeah. Saying if you're not about the team, if you're about yourself, anyway, go play for the other team because I'd love to play against you, something like that. There is another video circulating, and I noticed it while watching the game, and I didn't think anything of it. But Jackson Dart was animatedly, kind of yelling at Kiffin. Not like I'm mad at you yelling or we're in an argument, but just passionately, pleading his case towards Lane Kiffin. And people are saying that was him telling Kiffin to get Judkins off the field. And if the video is the only thing they're going by on that, there's not enough there. But if that is in fact what he was doing, because I noticed that during the game, I just didn't think anything of it. But if that's what he was doing, that is interesting.
Yeah.
Because that has been reported. I don't. I mean, Richard, do you know? I don't know if that's what happened.
I was not standing on the sideline, so I didn't hear anything like that with my own ears. People can say and believe what they want to. Oh, here's one. He's going to the Plains for $1.5 million. No, he's not. He may go to Auburn, but he's not going to Auburn for $1.5 million. There was a really good text here. Judkins might get replaced with another good back, and there won't be that much of a drop-off. The same applies to other positions, though. Wells, Nolan, Dion, etc. aren't exactly replacing scrubs. That's a good point. That's a good point. That defense, but Ole Miss is losing pieces in some of those places that they have to replace, period. They had to fill spots with those. I'm trying to, what else have we got? Bentley will produce enough with the same amount of touches. I don't think Bentley is built to carry the ball as much as Quinshon Judkins did. There's going to be the addition of
270 times.
No.